It was only in the 14th year of my existence as the daughter of the Marquis that I came to the shocking realization that I was merely an impostor, having usurped the place of the true heiress. On the very next day following the return of the genuine heiress to the estate, the Marquis's family, with great urgency, came to annul the engagement that had been arranged with me. Without uttering a single word, my esteemed father, the Marquis, resolved to send me away as the 18th concubine to another. In a bid to evade the fate of becoming a concubine, I shouldered a small bundle and bid farewell to the opulent life within the Marquis's residence. I had anticipated a life of hardship, characterized by insufficient food and inadequate clothing, yet unexpectedly, I found myself transformed into a true princess. As I surveyed the grand banquet, I caught sight of the Marquis seated at the lower end of the hall, and a subtle smile graced my lips. The courtiers jeered, "Why do you not kneel before the eldest princess?" In the 14th year of my life as the daughter of a Marquis, I discovered that I was merely an impostor, a false daughter occupying the place of the true heiress. My father and mother, filled with compassion, embraced the genuine daughter tightly. Realizing my own predicament, I prepared to leave the Marquis's residence. However, my mother pulled me into her embrace as well. "Qingyue, would you be happy to have a sister?" she asked. "I shall treat you just as well as I do Muyu." I caught a glimpse of the authentic daughter, Lin Muyu, glaring at me with disdain. "Oh, I misspoke. She should now be referred to as Muyu. I, in turn, ought to bear the surname Lin." While I felt a twinge of guilt for the true daughter returning home, the thought of the rural life that Muyu spoke of filled me with dread. The prospect of returning to the countryside made me fear I might not even have access to chicken legs. For the sake of the delectable roasted venison, suckling pig, and bird's nest soup that I had grown accustomed to, I resolved to postpone my departure for a few days, bidding farewell to these culinary delights before seeking out my biological parents. Yet, the next day, news of our Marquis family's true and false daughters leaked out, and the entire city was abuzz with gossip. The family I was betrothed to, the Earl's household, stationed themselves at our door early in the morning, intent on withdrawing the engagement. Logically, a mere Earl's family should not have aspired to align themselves with our esteemed Marquis. However, my mother had benefited from the Earl's wife, and thus, even before my birth, I was pledged in marriage. Reflecting on it now, it seemed they intended to reclaim the engagement for Muyu, the rightful heiress. The poor Muyu, having just returned, found herself in the unfortunate position of facing such an unworthy fiancé. Although I had been betrothed to Wang Yuan from the Earl's family since childhood, he was nothing more than a wastrel, frequenting brothels at a tender age and even swindling me out of my money. Each time I confided in my mother, she promised to teach Wang Yuan a lesson. Yet, she merely made a brief visit to the Earl's residence and returned home in defeat. Shaking my head, I finished my breakfast and even wiped away the tears of the wet nurse sitting beside me. "Do not weep, dear nurse. There is nothing to cry about." She immediately pulled me into her embrace, sobbing, "Oh, little miss, you are so unfortunate. You've lost your identity as a young lady, and now the Earl's family has called off the engagement. What will become of you?" I shrugged my shoulders. What will be will be. Like my mother, the wet nurse was a woman of delicate constitution, weeping daily since learning I was not the true heiress. Having lost her husband early on and her only daughter to illness, she had treated me as her own. At times, I felt she cared for me even more than my own mother did. I intended to seek favor from my mother to secure some advantages for my forthcoming departure from the Marquis. However, I stumbled upon my father's plan to send me to the old duke as his 18th concubine. "My lord, Qingyue is our daughter, whom we have raised for 14 years. How can you send her to be someone's concubine?" My mother wept, clutching my father. "How is sending her to the duke's residence to enjoy a life of luxury a form of harm? She is nothing but a foolish girl. What is there to miss?" My father retorted coldly. "Besides, she is merely the daughter of a country bumpkin. To enter the duke's residence is a fortune beyond her wildest dreams." Hearing my father's heartless words, I quickly covered my mouth and crouched down, hiding among the flower bushes. I could not believe he thought of me this way. I was not foolish. My mother and wet nurse had always praised me as the smartest child. The argument inside continued, though it hardly resembled a quarrel. My mother merely offered weak defenses, as she always did, her timidity evident. I felt a tumult of emotions within me. My father's decisions were never easily swayed. The engagement with the Earl's household had been made lightly, only because the Earl's wife hailed from a prominent ministerial family. My father sought to ingratiate himself with the minister, thus tacitly approving my mother's arrangement of the betrothal. He was a man who thrived on flattery. The thought of the tragic fate that befell concubines sent a chill through me. I refused to become someone else's concubine. It seemed prudent to gather my belongings and flee at the earliest opportunity. In haste, I sought out Shirmuyu. "What do you want?" she asked, eyeing me warily. I anxiously fiddled with my handkerchief. Shirmuyu had never treated me kindly. Since her arrival, she had regarded me with hostility, avoiding me like the plague. I could understand her animosity. After all, I had usurped her identity for a full 14 years. "Sister," I began, but she abruptly raised her hand. "Stop. Do not call me sister. My mother bore only one daughter." I nodded awkwardly.
"Forgive me, Muyu."
I paused, gauging her reaction. Seeing her merely frown without further protest, I pressed on. "Muyu, may I inquire where your parents, my biological parents, are?" She pursed her lips, gazing at me intently. "Why do you wish to know?" I scratched my head, feeling embarrassed. "I wish to find my birth parents. I no longer wish to remain in the Marquisate." Upon hearing this, her expression turned to one of shock, and the book she held fell to the ground as if she were momentarily stunned. I hurried to retrieve it. "Your book." I returned the hefty volume of the Spring and Autumn Annals to her, filled with admiration for Shirmuyu. She had a penchant for such literature. As a child, I would have much rather plunged into a lotus pond than endure reading. Shirmuyu stared at me, bewildered, and then asked, "Do you not enjoy the luxurious life of the Marquisate? Why do you wish to return?" I vigorously shook my head. "I do enjoy it, but I yearn to find my biological parents. At the very least, they would not force me into becoming a concubine, right?" I pondered uncertainly. However, even if they intended to send me to be someone's concubine, I could always confide in my mother, and she would likely support me in secret. After all, using the Marquisate's name in a remote village would grant me considerable influence. The thought made me chuckle to myself. Shirmuyu regarded me with a complicated expression. "I am not sure where your biological parents are, but according to the constable, they are near the village I reside in. You might inquire there." I gazed at her in astonishment. Was she not the result of my parents' switch? Seemingly sensing my confusion, Shirmuyu averted her gaze to the distance. "My adoptive parents had no children. You and I are merely innocent children caught in their web. Your parents may also be searching for you." Her words alleviated some of my guilt. With the answer in hand, I rushed back to my room to gather my valuables. After all, delaying even a day might lead to my father compelling me to become a concubine. As I finished packing my belongings and prepared to slip away, my wet nurse discovered my plan. She hurried toward me, grasping my arm with tears brimming in her eyes. "Little miss, where do you think you're going? You cannot venture out alone. The world is fraught with peril." Seeing the worry etched on her face warmed my heart. I freed one hand to gently pat hers. "Nurse, I am going back to find my biological parents. You need not worry about me. They have come to the capital to fetch me." To ease her concerns, I felt compelled to tell this white lie. "Little miss, why not stay in the Marquisate? The lady surely has feelings for you. Moreover, it is getting late," she added. Sighing at her anxious demeanor, I reluctantly revealed my father's decision. "Nurse, if I do not leave now, it will be too late. My father intends to send me to the Duke's residence as a concubine. If I truly become a concubine, I will have lost all hope." The wet nurse's eyes turned red, and she gazed at me without blinking. "Then I shall accompany you. At least I can look after you on the way. I cannot bear to let you go alone." I shook my head, setting down the burden in my hands, and clasped the nurse's hands earnestly, saying, "Nurse, you cannot accompany me. This journey is fraught with peril, and your presence would only bring you hardship. Moreover, should I encounter any misfortune out there, I would need you to relay a message to my mother at home. If she discovers that I have fled, she will surely be beside herself with worry. And only you can soothe her." The nurse bit her lip, hesitating for a moment before finally nodding. "Young miss, you must exercise utmost caution while you are away. If you find yourself in any predicament, do find a way to send me a message." Seeing the reluctant look on the nurse's face, I nodded vigorously. "Rest assured, I will write to you as soon as I arrive at my destination. Take good care of yourself in the manner." With that, I released her hand, hoisted my burden, and turned to stride towards the door. I stealthily navigated the secluded paths of the manor. Opting to escape through the small dog hole I often used to slip away for clandestine adventures, so as not to alert the Marquis. It took considerable effort to pull my sizable bundle through, and by the time I emerged, my head was covered in grass clippings. After flinging the pack onto my back, I held my head high and made my way to the tailor shop. However, just a few steps in, I encountered someone I wished to avoid, Wang Yuanan, the legitimate son of the Marquis' family. As I contemplated changing my course, he spotted me. "Well, if it isn't the esteemed young lady of the Marquis' household?" he remarked, adorned in a resplendent blue brocade robe embroidered with golden peonies, a large ruby clasping the collar. He strode towards me, clad in new deerskin boots. His gait exaggeratedly flamboyant, a fan swaying in his hand, a smirk of disdain gracing his lips. "Why are you out without your sycophants? You look rather disheveled." As he spoke, he raised his fan to strike me. I sidestepped, my eyes wide with defiance as I glared at him. His insolent demeanor ignited a deep-seated resentment within me. Yet, as he pointed out, I was no longer the young lady of the Marquis' household. Offending him would yield no benefits. I pressed my lips together, preparing to move past him when he spread his arms to block my way. "I'm asking you a question. Are you deaf, Shirqingwe? Where do you think you're going?" His gaze fell pointedly on the bundle on my back. "None of your business," I retorted impatiently. Before he could respond, one of his lackeys, displeased by my reply, shoved me aside. Had I not been steady on my feet, I would have fallen. "How dare you speak to young Master Wang in that manner?" the lackey scolded. To my surprise, Wang Yuan appeared to be genuinely angered. He swung his fist at the lackey's head. "Get lost. When I'm speaking to her, when did it become your turn to interrupt?" He continued to kick the man until he fled, his eyes now blazing with fury as they fixed upon me. "Shirqingwe, where do you intend to go?" His tone was almost accusatory, prompting me to push him away. "I do not bear the surname Shir anymore, and we have annulled our engagement." "You have no right to question me," I declared, attempting to step forward. His voice, thick with malice, followed me. "Shirqingwe, you are merely an impostor, a false daughter. And without the Marquis' backing, how long can you continue to prance about? Your biological parents are mere villagers. By some stroke of luck, you were taken into the Marquis' household to enjoy a life of luxury. Do not think that after a decade of good fortune, you can consider yourself of noble birth." My fists clenched tightly. I spun around, marched up to him, and landed a punch squarely on his face. I could no longer contain my frustration. After all, I was leaving today, and he would have no means to retaliate against me. Furthermore, he was unlikely to report me, given his penchant for preserving his pride. After all, he had just been struck by a woman. "My parents are not as you describe them. Wang Yuan, we have severed our engagement, so cease your harassment." With that, I strode past him. His voice echoed behind me. "Where do you think you can go? Are you truly going back to your parents? If you apologize and admit your mistakes, I will persuade my parents to take you back into the Marquis' household." His words ignited a furious blaze within me. Another mention of concubines. "Wang Yuan, how despicable. I had previously thought you merely playful and frivolous." In a fit of anger, I hurled my bundle at him. "You would have me as a concubine. I, Lin Qingwe, would rather die or beg than become one." After a flurry of punches and kicks, he finally fell silent, groaning on the ground. At that moment, as reality set in, I felt a twinge of fear. A commoner, had assaulted the son of a noble family in broad daylight. Just as I pondered my next move, a troop of soldiers approached. "The general of Zhennan is returning to the capital. All civilians clear the way." "What are you lot doing?" Upon hearing this, I quickly hoisted my bundle, dragging the incapacitated Wang Yuan aside, and hurriedly departed, fearful of being caught. Upon my arrival at the tailor shop, I eagerly changed out of my conspicuous clothing. After a bit of grooming, I beheld a somewhat spirited young man in the mirror. I nodded in satisfaction, relieved that I had never pierced my ears as a child, for otherwise, my disguise would have been compromised. At that moment, I appeared quite delicate, though it would be difficult for anyone to discern that I was not a boy. Once I had stuffed my ornate garments into my bulging bundle, I made my way to the carriage station. Despite having dabbled in martial arts as a child, possessing only rudimentary skills, I was confident that I could manage to fool someone as inept as Wang Yuan. To ensure my safety, I resolved to masquerade as a young master who had run away from home.
Who will take me to Jiangnan?
I proclaimed grandly, adopting the haughty tone of a wealthy, young gentleman. This was an endeavor I could handle with ease. My half-brother from the Marquis's household was the epitome of a spoiled rich kid, a perfect match for Wang Yuan. The workers at the carriage station gazed at the heavy silver ingots in my hand with wide eyes. Several drivers quickly surrounded me, eager to secure this business. Ultimately, I chose a sturdy-looking, seemingly honest driver. After settling on a price, I nonchalantly hopped onto the carriage as it began to sway towards Jiangnan. Of course, my true destination was not Jiangnan but rather Taoyuan County, where there lay a village called Taohua. Muyu hailed from a small village in Taohua. She had mentioned that the constables in the town knew the whereabouts of my biological parents. I had considered establishing my own household, as I had money. But in this day and age, it was exceedingly difficult for a woman to do so. I was not one to endure hardship easily. Thankfully, I still had living parents, so I would embark on this long journey to seek them out. With excitement bubbling within me, I gazed out at the scenery beyond the carriage. After 13 years of life, the farthest I had traveled was to the temple outside the city. Now, I was embarking on a solitary journey to a distant place. The thought alone thrilled me. As we traveled along, drawing ever closer to Taoyuan County, I felt a surge of joy, though I feigned a vexed demeanor. Stop the carriage. I am no longer going. The bumps along the way have made me uncomfortable, and I have no desire to visit Jiangnan. The driver looked bewildered and quickly reined in the horses, cautiously attempting to persuade me. Young master, we have already come so far. How can you say you want to go? I pulled out a silver ingot and tossed it to him, my expression haughty. I said I want to go, and this silver is your reward. Turn back at once. The driver, seeing the money, grumbled a few words but ultimately turned the carriage around with a cheerful demeanor. Once the carriage was far away, I took a deep breath, surveying my surroundings. The ancient archway of Taoyuan County loomed into view. I slung my burden onto my back and hurriedly made my way inside. In Taoyuan County, I resorted to my previous tactics and rented a carriage to Taohua Town. After locating the place where my biological parents resided, I rented another carriage to advance towards Taohua Village. Indeed, my biological father and mother lived in Taohua Village, Taohua Town, Taoyuan County. I imagined it must be a paradise filled with peach trees. Alas, I was mistaken. It turned out to be an ordinary village, perhaps even sparsely populated. However, there was indeed a colossal peach tree at the village entrance. I felt it must have attained immortality. Unable to resist, I leaped down from the carriage and rushed to the tree, kneeling before it. Grandfather Peach Tree, bless me with great wealth and a life of happiness. After fervently making my wishes, I hoisted my burden and strode into the village. Following the address I had previously inquired about, I found the Lin family at the eastern end of the village. Indeed, my biological parents also bore the surname Lin. It was said that a majority of the town shared the surname. However, this Lin family appeared to be newcomers. The gate was ajar, and I gently rapped upon it. Moments later, a middle-aged woman with an elegant demeanor opened the door. A flicker of astonishment crossed my eyes. Upon seeing her features, I confirmed she was undoubtedly my long-lost mother. I was taken aback by how youthful she appeared, even more so than my pampered mother at the Vofu. Suddenly feeling anxious, I clutched my bundle and averted my gaze. Hello, I am Lin Qingyue, here to seek my family. I am 14 years old and must be your daughter. The woman stared at me in disbelief, momentarily at a loss for words. My dear, who has come? A gentle voice called from within. The woman then regained her composure and fixed her gaze upon me. Just as I felt at a loss, she pulled me into her embrace. Feeling the dampness on my shoulder, I hesitantly raised my hand to gently stroke her back. I used to comfort my mother in this manner when she cried. To my surprise, my biological mother bore a striking resemblance to me and seemed to be a sentimental soul as well. At that moment, a handsome and gentle middle-aged man emerged from the inner room. My dear, what has happened? He swiftly approached and helped my mother to her feet. I looked up at him, realizing that he bore no resemblance to me. He was far too refined, resembling an erudite scholar from the capital. Noticing my gaze, his sharp eyes turned towards me. When he recognized my familiar features, he too was momentarily taken aback. My mother collected herself and, stepping forward, took my hand. "You must be starving from your journey. Come inside, and I will prepare some food for you." I instinctively touched my stomach, realizing I was indeed quite hungry. The journey had not been easy, and I was almost sick of the dry rations. Following my mother, I obediently walked inside. The man behind me rushed forward, gazing at me with excitement. "My dear, who is she?" My mother nodded. The man immediately looked at me, with tears welling in his eyes. I felt a bit shy under his gaze. Go, go, go. Can't you see she's hungry? Quick, prepare a bowl of noodles." Upon hearing my mother's voice, the man blinked, reluctantly glanced at me one last time, and walked towards a nearby room, which I assumed was the kitchen. My mother led me into the house. The interior was simply furnished, but exuded a touch of elegance. Several calligraphic works adorned the walls of the main hall. Lacking any expertise in art, I could not discern their merit. My mother poured me a cup of tea. I was parched and took the cup eagerly, downing the tea in one gulp. Once I set the cup down, I was startled to realize it appeared to be of finer quality than the tea set at the Vofu. I was secretly astonished. Was this normal? Filled with curiosity, I discreetly surveyed my surroundings. Accidentally, I spotted a delicate ornament placed on the corner of the table. Upon closer inspection, its material was smooth and refined, certainly not made from ordinary materials. Looking at the table and chairs, the exquisite wood grain suggested they were also of exceptional quality. Approaching a bookshelf, I casually opened a book. The texture of the paper was unique, and I could faintly detect a subtle scent of sandalwood. At that moment, my mother approached, noticing my wandering gaze, and said with a smile, "My dear daughter, come over. It's time to eat. You can admire those things after you've had your fill." Just as I was about to inquire further, the man entered with a bowl of noodles.
"Come."
"Let us eat."
He beckoned me.
I hesitated, glancing at the familiar woman. She smiled and nodded encouragingly. I eagerly ran over, took the bowl, and began slurping the noodles. To my surprise, what seemed like a simple bowl of noodles was utterly delectable. I devoured every last bit, and upon looking up, I discovered the man and woman were watching me with beaming smiles. Feeling a bit embarrassed, I said, "I'm sorry. This is the first time I've had such delicious noodles, and I couldn't help myself." My mother shook her head, still smiling. "You must have suffered out there." I quickly shook my head, remembering something, and lifted my bundle from a nearby spot, placing it on the table. "Father, mother, I haven't suffered. I've also brought back many treasures." Although they did not appear to be impoverished, I felt I had no proper gifts to present. I opened the bundle, rummaging through the gold and silver trinkets inside. "Father, mother, take whatever you wish. I am quite generous." My mother stood up, her eyes alight with excitement as she grasped my hand. "What did you just call me?" I hesitated, looking at her, and tentatively replied, "Mother?"
"Oh."
She joyfully pulled me into her embrace. The man hurried over, wrapping us both in a warm embrace. I then realized that my father was quite robust, holding us tightly, unlike my father from the Vofu, who was quite portly. Looking up at my father's fervent gaze, I exclaimed, "Father."
"Oh."
He pulled us even closer. Once they had calmed down, we sat together for a heartfelt conversation. Naturally, the first question was why they had not come to find me. Upon hearing my inquiry, my mother's eyes glistened with tears as she looked at my father. He sighed heavily before explaining, "Your mother and I had no idea you were lost. We encountered some unfortunate events back then. Your mother gave birth to you alone and fell into a coma. By the time I found her, the infant beside her had already lost its breath. We both believed it was a stillborn child. For all these years, we have remained here, hoping to accompany the child who passed away shortly after birth." Hearing this, my mother punched my father playfully. I always suspected something was amiss. I distinctly heard the sound of a baby crying just before I lost consciousness. Observing the deep bond between them, I couldn't help but smile and say, "It's all right. After all, I have found my way back. Although I may have lost the power of the Fofu, I have gained the love and harmony of my parents. Of course," I added, "just save some of that money. It should last a lifetime." My mother wiped the corner of her eyes and looked at me. "Qingwe?" I nodded obediently. "Qingwe, have you been well these past years?" I blinked my big eyes. "I've been doing quite well. I was raised in the Wofu for over a decade, and just recently, the true daughter of the Wofu returned to find her family, which revealed I was not of their blood. I smiled, so here I am, seeking you. My mother embraced me tightly. Oh, my dear child, you've endured so much. My father looked at me with a warm smile. In a few days, it will be your 15th birthday, won't it? I will take you back home to celebrate your coming-of-age ceremony in grand style. Instantly, I perked up, nodding with a beaming smile. I knew they were anything but ordinary folk. What lineage of gentry might this be? Yet, I find no cause for concern regarding sustenance. It must surely be the manifestation of the peach tree at the village entrance. As I recounted the tales of my life over the years, the night silently descended. They personally prepared a room for me. Though it was not as spacious as my previous abode, it was far from lacking. My mother even brought along a grand chest filled with jewelry. Use this for now. In a few days, I shall have someone bring you more, she said. The Peach Blossom town is rather remote, with few treasures to be found. Listening to my mother's complaints, I beamed at the dazzling chest before me. At this moment, I felt as though the burdens I had carried were mere encumbrances. I pondered where my parents, indeed, sourced their wealth. After a thorough cleansing, I finally lay down. Gazing up at the unfamiliar canopy above, I had anticipated sleeplessness, yet unexpectedly, I drifted into a deep slumber almost instantly. Life in Peach Blossom Village was exceedingly pleasant. My parents treated me with utmost kindness. Whether taking me to the river to catch fish or preparing a variety of meals each day, their affection was evident. After a period of travel that had slimmed me down, I found myself replenished once more. In truth, I was not quite overweight, merely a bit plump. I dejectedly tugged at the soft flesh around my waist. Clearly, I needed to embark on a diet. I could not continue indulging. I silently clenched my fist, resolving to do better. "Yaya, what are you doing? Come in quickly. Your father has prepared a delicious meal for you." I swallowed hard. Perhaps tomorrow would be the day I commenced my diet. The vow I had just made crumbled in an instant.
Coming.
I rose and made my way into the house. Under their endless offerings, I even neglected to send a letter to the Marquis's residence. Truly, it was a sin. I silently atoned for my oversight. "Father, can we send letters from our village?" I inquired, holding a thin envelope in my hand, directed at a man beaming with delight.
"Thea, who are you sending a letter to?"
he asked. I lowered my head, speaking softly. I had promised the wet nurse at the Marquis's residence that I would write to her upon my safe arrival. After speaking, I raised my gaze to him, fearful of any discontent that might flicker across his face. In the past, the Marquis had deemed me a hopeless case, mingling only with servants. Even the Marquis's wife had expressed her disapproval towards me. Yet, I felt that the wet nurse held genuine affection for me. How could I withhold my response simply because of her station? Though my biological father seemed lenient towards me, what if he too disapproved of my actions? To my surprise, my father reached out, gently patting my head as he accepted the letter. "Do not worry, I will ensure this letter reaches her hands." Lifting my gaze to meet the smiling face of my father, I suddenly realized, even if they lacked the wealth and power of the Marquis's residence, I would willingly remain in this village, embracing the life of a farmer's daughter. Though I had grown up in luxury at the Marquis's estate, not everything had been to my satisfaction. The Marquis was, without a doubt, selfish and self-serving. While the Marquis's wife did express concern for me, I always sensed that her care was akin to that of a loving guardian for a pet. In fact, she seemed more invested in her legitimate son than in me. My mother often lamented that she had not borne a son for the Marquis, feeling she owed him. Yet, there were many concubines in the Marquis's courtyard. With only one legitimate son and a daughter, it seemed not to be my mother's fault. Perhaps it was simply the Marquis's own misdeeds catching up to him. As the tranquil days passed, one ordinary morning, I opened my bleary eyes and stepped outside. What did I behold? The courtyard was filled with armor. It was the army. I rubbed my eyes in disbelief. "Father, mother, has our family committed a crime?" In an instant, visions of our home being raided and our heads severed flooded my mind. How outrageous. I had just returned in search of my family, and now I faced execution. Oh, dear. My good days were not yet over. "What is it, Yaya? Are you all right?" My mother's voice called from behind. I turned, my finger trembling as I pointed toward the courtyard. Mother, look at all those soldiers. Are we about to face a calamity? I could not bring myself to utter the words raided, fearing I might jinx it. My mother followed my gaze, her eyes betraying no hint of panic. Silly child, do not be afraid. They are here to take us home. While I was still in a daze, my father emerged from the inner chamber, dressed more finely than usual in a brocade robe and jade belt, standing tall. Previously, he would wear only a long gown. Behind him followed another figure, the renowned general of the south, Liu Zhiheng, clad in gleaming silver armor and wielding a sharp sword. He exuded an aura of silence and restraint. I blinked rapidly, hardly believing my eyes. It truly was General Liu. At the tender age of 18, he had been bestowed the title of Wolf's Lair for his remarkable military achievements and served as a companion to the current emperor, earning his favor. He was the dream suitor of countless young ladies in the capital. Had I not been bound to Wang Yuan since childhood, I could have easily found myself among them. And now, he stood in my courtyard. I was utterly astounded. Seeing my expression, my father approached with a smile. Yeah, do not be afraid. This is Liu Zhiheng, a friend of your brother. He is here to take us home. A wave of relief washed over me. Thank goodness. But wait. How is it that such a grand general had come to fetch us from this remote valley? Was it truly appropriate? I forced a smile, casting my gaze toward the rows of soldiers assembled in the courtyard. Father, is it really necessary for an army to escort us home? As soon as I spoke, I turned my attention back to the imposing Liu Zhiheng. Moreover, I know who he is. Liu Zhiheng is the general of the south. Wouldn't it be excessive for him to come to retrieve us? To my astonishment, upon hearing my words, Liu Zhiheng's expression shifted, and he stepped forward, clasping his hands in salute. I have been ordered to welcome you. This is no misuse of resources. I stood there in a daze, watching the esteemed general bow respectfully before me. I instinctively raised my hand and tapped my head. Could it be that I was still dreaming?
Yeah.
There is something your father and I have yet to figure out how to tell you. My mother approached, taking my hand in hers. I blurted out, could it be that our family is of royal descent? How else could the general of the south come to fetch us? I intended merely to express my astonishment, only for my mother to nod gravely in response. I gasped, is it truly royal blood? But I couldn't recall any prince being away for long, with his son managing the household. My father stepped closer, smiling gently. There is one. I looked at him in confusion. Who? My mother regarded me, raising her hand to point at the sky. I lifted my gaze to the cloudless heavens. The heavens? The sky? The son of heaven? The emperor? Instantly, my parents exchanged glances of satisfaction as they looked at me. I swallowed hard, trembling as I gazed back at them. It was rumored that the young crown prince ascended the throne early, while the retired emperor had taken to seclusion. Furthermore, the young empress had donned male attire to lead troops into battle. Could they truly be my parents? I scrutinized them cautiously. My mother pulled me into a warm embrace. I'm sorry, my dear. I did not intend to keep this from you. I simply didn't know how to explain. The unfamiliarity that had begun to settle within me was instantly dispelled by her fervent embrace. Staring at my parents, who appeared no different from usual, I was left in a stupor. I raised my hand to point at myself. If you are the retired emperor and empress, then that would make me? At that moment, Liu Zhiheng knelt on one knee, addressing me with utmost reverence. Your Highness, as of now, you have yet to don the royal jade butterfly. On the day of your coming-of-age ceremony, His Majesty will formally declare you the Grand Princess of the Great Quan Dynasty. I was momentarily dazed. I am a princess. Could it possibly be a mistake? I anxiously exclaimed, Father, Mother, you mustn't be mistaken, right? What if I am not truly your daughter? My father gently ruffled my hair. There is no mistake. Liu Zhiheng has conducted a thorough investigation. You are indeed our daughter, the Grand Princess of the Great Quan Dynasty. Father and Mother, oh no. I should now refer to them as His Majesty and Her Majesty, led me towards the capital. Behind us trailed a long procession. At that moment, I realized that the meals I had previously enjoyed were all prepared by the imperial chefs. My father merely borrowed the splendor to honor me. Frustrated, I tugged at my hair. Could it be that what the Marquis said was true? Am I truly that foolish? Not even aware that a living heirloom was hidden within my own home? Mother patted my hand. Yeah, do not be disheartened. There are many hidden guards in the courtyard. Upon hearing this, my heart sank further. We wobbled along for an entire month. As I gazed upon the towering city gates, it felt as though I were in a different world. We welcomed the retired emperor, the empress dowager, and the grand princess back to the palace. A sharp voice echoed from within. The city guards lined up in perfect formation along the sides of the road. Following the military were the elegantly dressed court attendants, and behind them, the throngs of citizens eagerly awaiting our arrival. They knelt in unison, fervently shouting, "Long live the retired emperor! Long live the empress dowager! Long live the grand princess!" The chorus of voices rose and fell, resonating like thunder in the heavens. I clenched the handkerchief in my grasp, my heart racing uncontrollably. Having lived in the capital for 14 years, this was my first time entering the city in such a celebrated manner. Just a few months prior, I had left in disgrace, and now I returned so swiftly. In the midst of my tumultuous thoughts, the procession gradually made its way towards the palace. My coming-of-age ceremony was just 3 days away. The palace was abuzz with activity. Officials from the Ministry of Internal Affairs were diligently preparing the venue, observing everything. My heart grew increasingly anxious. These days felt like a vivid dream. My elder brother appeared by my side without my noticing.
Hey,
"Why do you appear so burdened these past few days? Is it too stifling within the palace? The princess mansion is already under construction. You'll be able to move out soon." I lamented. "Once you all leave, I will be left all alone in this palace." My brother did not embody the lofty demeanor of an emperor. Instead, he smiled warmly and gently patted my shoulder. He resembled our father, a man of profound wisdom. I shook my head. "Brother, I am merely a bit anxious." He sighed softly. "Seeing you like this causes me great concern. How about letting Ji Hung accompany you outside for a stroll to clear your mind? After all, you grew up in the royal city. It would be a good opportunity to see your friends." At his suggestion, I instinctively nodded. "Brother, you are too kind to me. However, I have lived in the capital since childhood. I do not require Lu Zhiheng's company." He furrowed his brow, looking at me intently. "In these tumultuous times, as my officially appointed grand princess, you must not take any risks." I lowered my gaze, conceding, "All right." It seemed my brother was indeed a competent ruler. When he frowned, I felt as though my own head might be at risk. Before long, Lu Zhiheng appeared before me, clad in a simple dark uniform. He knelt on one knee, performing a standard military salute. "I am Lu Zhiheng, awaiting the Grand Princess's commands." I waved my hands repeatedly. "General Lu, there is no need for such formality. Please rise." If others were to discover that Lu Zhiheng kneels before me daily, I would surely be scorned. My heart racing, I stepped back a few paces and hurried ahead. Lu Zhiheng quickly followed, guarding my rear. We stealthily exited the palace through a side door. The streets beyond bustled as always, filled with lively activity. The shops lining the streets were a dazzling array of wares. As I navigated through the familiar streets, I felt a long-lost sense of warmth returning. The heaviness in my heart gradually lifted. Lu Zhiheng remained closely at my heels. When we passed a stall selling sugar figurines, I was captivated by the vividly crafted sweets. "Little girl, would you like one?" The stall owner, an elderly man with snowy hair, looked at me with warmth. Unable to resist, I stepped forward. In the past, I had crafted sugar figurines for the Marquis and his wife, even for Wang Yu, and regrettably, the Marquis had smashed the figurine on the ground, scolding me for being frivolous. The wife had set the figurine aside, never even glancing at it, only lamenting to me about the Marquis's callousness. As for Wang Yuan, he had disdainfully regarded the sugar figurine in his hand, declaring that I was still a child for gifting such common fare. I hesitated as I gazed at the various sugar figurines before me. Perhaps I truly was still quite juvenile. Even at nearly 15, I found joy in these delights. I turned to the silently observing Lu Zhiheng. "General Lu, if someone were to gift you one of these sugar figurines, would you find it beneath you?" Lu Zhiheng paused for a moment. "Miss Changlin, I have trained in martial arts since childhood and seldom indulge in such leisure. Should someone bestow it upon me, I would be quite delighted." His slightly reserved demeanor stirred something within me. If I were to gift one to my parents and brother, would they consider it trivial? Lu Zhiheng seemed to ponder something, a faint smile gracing his lips. "I believe they would be very pleased." Hearing this, my heart was at ease. Shopkeeper, please make me 5 sugar figurines. The elderly man beamed at me. Of course, young lady. What would you like them to look like? Eagerly, I replied, 4 of me and 1 of him. I pointed decisively at Lu Zhiheng. He looked taken aback. I smiled and added, the one for you should certainly resemble you. The one of myself is because my parents and brother are not here. The old man worked swiftly. In less than half a tea's time, 5 delightful sugar figurines were ready. I popped one into my mouth and handed another to Lu Zhiheng, then asked the old man to wrap the remaining 3. Let us go. Yet Lu Zhiheng remained still, gazing intently at the sugar figurine in my hand. I inquired, what is it? Do you not like it? He snapped back to reality and looked at me. I was also thinking that I would like to take the sugar figurine back to Cherish. I regarded him with curiosity. It seems that the general is quite different. Even sugar figurines are worthy of preservation. I requested the old man to wrap up his sugar figurine as well before turning to leave. Lu Zhiheng approached me, whispering, thank you, Grand Princess. This is the first time I have received such a gift. I will surely treasure it. I could not help but glance at him, feeling a pang of sympathy. Such a noble general, and yet he had never even tasted a sugar figurine. We continued to wander through the bustling marketplace. Suddenly, Lu Zhiheng leaned closer. There are followers tailing us. Please wait here for a moment. I shall return swiftly. I nodded slightly, signaling him to be quick. As for my safety, there was no need for concern. Although it appeared that only Lu Zhiheng was by my side, a multitude of hidden guards surrounded us. I stood before a stall selling embroidered handkerchiefs, idly inspecting the exquisite pieces. Just then, a familiar yet irritating voice called from behind, oh, if it isn't Lin Qingyu. What is this? Unable to endure the countryside, and returning to the Marquis's estate, I turned to find Wang Yu and once again, clad in resplendent attire. A conspicuous jade pendant hanging from his waist, and a haughty expression plastered on his face, as he regarded me. I coldly spoke, so it is you. I have no ties with you whatsoever. He seemed oblivious to my displeasure, stepping closer with a sardonic gaze. Lin Qingyu, you can no longer return to the Marquis. The Marquis and his wife have already been won over by that genuine heiress, and your place in the household has vanished. However, if you are willing to plead with me, I may allow you entry into the Earl's residence. I regarded him with disdain. Wang Yuhan, I have long declared that Lin Qingyu, will never be a concubine. Besides, I have no intention of seeking refuge with the Marquis. My parents brought me to the capital to celebrate my coming-of-age ceremony. Wang Yuhan appeared to be deaf to my words, absently fanning himself. Lin Qingyu, I understand your reluctance to become a concubine, but your status is too low. My parents would never agree to your becoming my legitimate wife. Trust me, once I ascend to power, I shall make you my rightful partner. I scoffed at the man before me. His honeyed words repugnant. Wang Yuhan, just look at your current demeanor. It is utterly grotesque. Furthermore, I do not require your Earl's generosity. Whatever you possess, my parents and brothers can provide for me. Wang Yuhan sneered contemptuously. How could that be, Lin Qingyu? You must be dreaming. Once you leave the Marquis, you are nothing. If it weren't for the childhood bond we share, do you think you'd have the repeated chance to reject me? Realizing that reason was futile, I had no desire to linger further. Step aside. I have nothing more to say to you. To my astonishment, he seized my hand. Lin Qingyu, you shall not leave. I glared at him, gritting my teeth. Release me. Otherwise, do not blame me for being impolite. He recoiled slightly, yet declared, I will not let go. If you have the audacity, strike me dead. Just as I prepared to shake him off, he was suddenly hurled away. I gazed in astonishment at Wang Yuhan, sprawled on the ground. Had my strength become so formidable that I could send him flying with but a thought? Wang Yuhan rose, clutching his abdomen, glaring fiercely at me.
Who are you?
What does my relationship with Lin Qingyu concern you? How dare you strike me? Do you know who I am? I glanced behind me. It was Lu Zhiheng. You have returned? He nodded slightly and positioned himself protectively behind me. Wang Yuhan, the legitimate son of the Huiyan Earl. Miss Lin's status is noble. How dare you behave so insolently here? Wang Yuhan, noticing the intimidating aura emanating from Lu Zhiheng, stubbornly retorted, since you know who I am, how dare you strike me? With that, he charged directly at Liu Zhihong. Unable to bear witnessing his impending plight, I swiftly raised my hands to shield my eyes. As expected, within mere seconds, a pained scream erupted, and he lay once more on the ground. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, he glared viciously at Liu Zhihong. Lin Qingwei. Who is he? I pressed my lips together, offering a kind reminder. Wang Yuhan, you should leave. He is not someone you can provoke. After all, he was a childhood companion. Despite his sharp tongue, his flirtations, and his moments of foolishness, he was not deserving of death. Wang Yuhan staggered to his feet, issuing a threat. You wait. Had it not been for Lin Qingwei pleading on your behalf, I would have challenged you to a duel. With that, he stumbled away, pushing through the crowd of onlookers. Wang Yuhan truly reached new heights of stubbornness. After Wang Yuhan's departure, Liu Zhihong turned to me. Are you unharmed? I shook my head. Of course, I'm fine. Wang Yuhan has never won a fight against me. Observing the faint smile at the corner of the stern General Liu's mouth, I suddenly realized I had inadvertently spoken my thoughts aloud. How embarrassing. I lowered my head and walked ahead. Miss Lin, are we not going to shop anymore? I quickened my pace. No more shopping. Let us return home. 3 days later. Today marks my 15th birthday, which is also the grand occasion of my coming-of-age ceremony. Early in the morning, the palace attendants dressed me in the ceremonial attire for the worship ritual. Following behind my father, the emperor, my mother, the empress, and my elder brother, I completed the sacrificial rites one by one. Thankfully, having been a lady of the inner chamber since childhood, I did not falter in any of the rituals. After the rites, it was time for the coming-of-age gift. It was my mother, the Empress Dowager, who personally placed the heavy crown, symbolizing adulthood, upon my head. I bore the weight of the ornate crown adorned with jewels. Supported by the palace attendants, I descended towards the platform. Next came the palace banquet. Upon returning to my chamber, the attendants removed the extravagant headpiece and prepared me anew. As evening approached, the banquet commenced. We welcome His Majesty the Emperor, the Grand Emperor, the Empress Dowager, and the eldest princess. Long live the Emperor! Long live the Grand Emperor! Long live the Empress Dowager! Long live the eldest princess! The cheers echoed throughout. Following my father, the Emperor, my mother, and my elder brother, I entered the banquet hall with measured steps. Once seated, my elder brother addressed the gathered officials. All ministers, please rise. My keen eyes immediately spotted the Marquis. Prostrated on the ground, I regarded him leisurely. As he stood and raised his head, his gaze collided directly with mine. I distinctly saw his pupils constrict, momentarily frozen in place. I could not help but revel in his bewilderment. I had not expected the man wielding life and death would display such a countenance. The censor beside him shot a disapproving glare at the dazed Marquis. Young Marquis, what are you doing? Control your gaze. The Marquis finally regained his senses and, looking dazed, made his way back to his seat. I scanned the crowd below, enjoying the array of expressions on their faces. Shi Muyu appeared somewhat surprised but quickly lowered her head, ceasing to look in my direction. Conversely, the Marquis's wife beside her began to redden with emotion. She tightly grasped Shi Muyu's arm. I frowned slightly. The Marquis's wife always behaved this way. In times of distress, she would cling to others, even forgetting that they too could feel pain. I observed Shi Muyu's face turn pale, yet she did not shake off the Marquis's wife's grip. I silently shook my head. What was wrong with Shi Muyu? Why was she so weak? If it were me, I would have told her it hurt long ago. Although the Marquis's wife had her flaws, she genuinely cared for us. Once pointed out, she would typically recognize her missteps. I turned away, disinterested, and glanced toward the Huiyan Earl's position. What met my gaze were 3 identical faces of astonishment. The Huiyan Earl, his wife, and, of course, Wang Yuhan. I cast a provocative glance at Wang Yuhan. Goodness! How delightful it felt to play the villain. I happily withdrew my gaze. After the coming-of-age ceremony, my princess residence was finally completed. The Grand Emperor and the Empress Dowager retreated into seclusion once more. I moved into the princess residence. The Yongle Marquis visited daily, lingering outside the gates of the princess residence. I knew he intended to leverage our past bond to ascend to my elevated status. I had thought Wang Yuhan would do the same, but unexpectedly, the news I received was that he had silently departed for the frontier. Wang Yuhan had enlisted in the military. This truly caught me off guard. Had it not been for Lu Zhihong informing me directly, I would not have believed it. Wang Yuhan's parents doted on him excessively. How could they allow him to venture to such a perilous place? Alas, no matter how I racked my brain, I could not fathom his reasoning. Although he had mocked me after I became the false heiress, I had not suffered any loss. In fact, I had bested him in a fight. I was not one to hold grudges. It was unnecessary for him to retreat so far away. The Yongle Marquis continued to loiter outside the princess residence daily. While it was true that he had raised me, I could not treat him with undue reverence. His behavior was becoming increasingly irksome to me. The elder brother issued a stern warning to him, which prompted him to restrain himself. However, he shifted his strategy and expelled Shi Muyu to the princess's residence to seek an audience. If she was not granted entry, she would not be allowed to return. I could not withstand the sight of her pale yet stubborn face and acquiesced to her entrance into the palace. After all, she had never wronged me. So, why should I be at odds with her? Not to mention, I actually harbored a fondness for her. In October, the weather had gradually grown cooler, yet she remained clad in a thin dress. It was evident that she had not appeared thus during the palace banquet. I surmised it must have been the Marquis's idea. I instructed a servant to fetch a cloak for her. You may as well put this on. She pressed her lips together, which had taken on a slight purplish hue.
Why are you helping me?
I could hardly admit my admiration for her, so I tossed a book into her hands. This princess shall do as she pleases. Shi Muyu lightly bit her lip, a hint of a smile forming. Thank you, Lin Qingyu. I guess she must be enduring a difficult time. Nevertheless, she still retained her old passion for reading. Curiously, I inquired, since you enjoy reading so much, why not ask your mother to hire a tutor for you? She tightened her grip on the book. Since you left home, my mother has been weeping daily. I do not wish to disturb her. I scoffed. Your mother is truly hindering your education. Why not seek the Marquis's assistance? The Marquis says that young ladies should focus on feminine virtues, forbidding me from engaging with such texts. I shook my head. How tragic. You may study here with me. After all, my elder brother has arranged for a tutor, and I can have you as my companion. My elder brother had yet to take a concubine, thus leaving him without heirs. I had no desire to attend the palace school, which is why I arranged for a tutor to come to the princess's residence to instruct me. Moreover, I felt somewhat too old for the school, which would be quite embarrassing. I was not fond of studying, but my elder brother insisted. He asserted that as a royal princess, I must acquire knowledge and culture, artistic refinement, court etiquette, and feminine crafts, as well as horsemanship and archery. The thought of so many subjects awaiting me gave me a headache. Thankfully, I had managed to enlist a capable assistant. Indeed, Shi Muyu proved to be quite remarkable. After a thorough round of study, I could barely maintain passing grades in various cultural courses, while my performance in feminine crafts was utterly dismal. Aside from excelling in horsemanship and archery, Shi Muyu excelled in everything. The tutor nodded and shook his head at her in amazement. Apart from her archery skills, she was truly a prodigy in every other subject. I sighed inwardly.
Muyu, if only you were a man.
You would surely be the top scholar of our dynasty. A faint blush crept onto her cheeks, as if unable to bear my praise. Your Highness is too kind, Miss Muyu. You were just delayed in your studies as a child. The wet nurse approached us with a plate of pastries. But it is not too late. If you study diligently, there will come a day when it proves useful. I plucked a piece of pastry and popped it into my mouth. The wet nurse had been summoned by the emperor early on as a gift for my new establishment at the princess's residence. Days passed in the company of Shi Muyu as we studied together, and our relationship deepened. Eventually one day, I inadvertently pierced the skylight and caught a glimpse of the treasured scrolls hidden within my elder brother's study. To my astonishment, one depicted the resolute little flower, Shi Muyu, clad in coarse linen. Elder brother, do you have feelings for Muyu? I inquired, holding the scroll. He snatched it back, exclaiming, Be careful not to damage it. I shook my head. A brother who forgets his sister in favor of beauty. However, if Shi Muyu were to become your sister-in-law, I would wholeheartedly support it. Over the past 2 years, Shi Muyu had blossomed into an even more exquisite beauty. Her figure was as delicate as a willow, resembling the Marquis's wife perfectly. Yet her spirit was exceptionally resilient, endearing her to all. I lamented daily about who would be fortunate enough to take her as a wife. To my surprise, it was my brother. Upon realizing my elder brother's intentions, I discreetly sought to uncover whom Muyu admired. I had only begun to probe when she caught on. She gently patted my head and smiled, saying, "I know what you're trying to do, but I do not believe I could ever be a mother to a nation." My eyes widened. "Did your elder brother confess his feelings to you?" She nodded slightly, gazing wistfully elsewhere. "I grew up in the marketplace. Even when the Marquis's household took me in, I was never valued. He is so exceptional, and I would only tarnish his reputation." I grasped her shoulders and shook her vigorously. "Muyu, be more aware. You are extraordinary, not inferior to the top scholars in the court. Your brilliance has captivated me and the entire dynasty." She paused, momentarily taken aback, yet still bore a sorrowful expression. "But my father, if he were to find out, would undoubtedly do everything in his power to sever our bond." I clapped my hands together.
Why worry about that?
"He could never overturn your elder brother's authority." She remained silent for a long time before finally raising her head to meet my gaze. "Thank you, Qingyu." With that, she lifted her skirts and hurried away. I rose, shaking my head and smiling as I mused, what is love that it compels one to forsake life and death? A deep male voice interrupted my thoughts. It was Lu Zhiheng. Upon encountering his fervent gaze, my heart skipped a beat. I was aware of his affections for me. Over the past 2 years, he had frequently visited the princess's residence. Initially, he used Wang Yuan as an excuse to seek me out, but later, upon discovering my proficiency in horsemanship and archery, he insisted on personally teaching me. I had long discerned his motives. Unfortunately, I was not yet prepared for marriage. Perhaps it was the marriage of the Marquis's wife and the Duke of Yongle that instilled a sense of dread within me. My father and mother had promised that I could remain unmarried until I was ready. They claimed they owed me that much. I did not know if one day I would accept Lu Zhiheng's affections. After all, who could remain unmoved by the advances of such an outstanding general? I am Lu Zhiheng, a renowned young general in the empire. However, at the age of 8, I was merely a fragile child. I was fortunate to become the prince's companion in study, yet this often led to being bullied by jealous peers.
It was an ordinary day,
and I was silently enduring the torment when a youthful voice interrupted. "Stop. How dare you bully the weak with numbers?" It was a delicate little girl. A shorter boy behind her attempted to pull her away. "Yu, let us go quickly. They are older than us. They will surely beat us too." "Wang Yuan, why are you so cowardly?" The little girl poked the boy's forehead, leaving a red mark. Afterward, she charged toward us. She was truly impressive. Though she appeared younger than us, she effortlessly knocked down my assailants one by one. I watched her in awe, unable to comprehend how she accomplished such feats. Before I knew it, she had pulled me up from the ground. A natural-born warrior. I realized she must be a celestial being sent to rescue me. She quickly grabbed the little boy and fled. I barely had time to thank her, as her heroic figure was etched into my memory. Years later, in the streets of the capital, I recognized her at once. I was returning to court and regrettably could not approach her to express my gratitude. I thought we would soon reunite, yet despite searching the entire city, I could not find her. I did learn that she had once been the daughter of a marquis, but now she had vanished into the vastness of the world. I assumed we would never meet again.
to my surprise.
The emperor assigned me to a distant town to welcome the retired emperor, the empress dowager, and the long-lost princess back to the palace. Once more I encountered her. I initially believed I could effortlessly approach her and strike up a conversation. Yet, to my dismay, my lips remained sealed, akin to a gourd that refuses to open. Frustrated with my ineptitude, I chastised my own mouth. In the blink of an eye, the fleeting month passed, and I watched regretfully as she entered the palace. Unexpectedly, joy graced me once more. The emperor commanded me to take her out for an outing. I was elated. However, upon our meeting, I found myself once again at a loss for words. I abhorred my ineffectual tongue. She, ever perceptive, occasionally engaged me in conversation and even gifted me a sugar figurine. Regrettably, it did not resemble her. My mind wandered as I accompanied her, fixated on that diminutive sugar figurine in her hand. I excused myself, hastening toward the sugar stall. The elderly vendor, with a beaming smile, crafted a figurine of her for me, leaving me thoroughly satisfied upon my return. To my astonishment, I spotted the man, Wang Yuan, who once held a betrothal with her, even daring to lay hands upon her. Without a second thought, I sent him sprawling. Having forsaken her, he had no right to contest for her affection. Soon, her true identity was unveiled to Wang Yuan. To dissuade him from any lingering hopes, I stealthily infiltrated the estate of Du Qian that very night. To my disbelief, I discovered him clutching a small sugar figurine, identical to mine, yet slightly smaller. I watched as he reluctantly stowed it away in a drawer, unable to restrain the flames of jealousy igniting within me. You shall have no chance with her any longer. She is the exalted princess, while you are merely a young noble from a duke's household. You even relinquished your claim to her hand. The emperor would never allow you to re-enter her favor. I ruthlessly shattered his aspirations. Of course, I remained oblivious to the emperor's thoughts, but I would never permit him to appear before her again. I even longed to seize his cherished sugar figurine and crush it beneath my feet. Alas, I had become a general now. Such actions would be far too juvenile. I departed with an air of arrogance. To my surprise, the following day, he seemed to have come to terms with it and quietly left the capital for the distant frontier. Under the cover of night, I infiltrated the duke's estate again, only to find that he had taken the sugar figurine with him. My teeth ground in frustration. Yet, this turn of events provided me with an excuse to visit the princess's palace daily to report on Wang Yuan's whereabouts. Gradually, we became more acquainted, and I eagerly endeavored to showcase my masculine charm. The emperor had once said, "To cherish someone, one must learn to exhibit their allure." I grasped this wisdom. In time, I began to embrace my true self, nearly confessing my affection for her outright. Regrettably, she consistently evaded me. Nevertheless, I firmly believed that before Wang Yuan's return, I would succeed in capturing her heart. The end. Thank you for listening. I look forward to our next tale.